Welcome to the Professional Car Washing and Detailing's Wash Talk. I'm your host, Brian Ankney. Today, my guest is Stuart Hammerschmidt from Shore Corporation. Welcome, Stuart.
Hey, Brian. How are you?
I'm great. Welcome back, Stuart and Scooby, right?
New tie.
Can you show everybody the new tie?
Here's the new tie. The other one was green. This one's blue.
Okay. I wanted to start with super concentrates, but what would Scooby-Doo say about super concentrates, and are they all the same?
Well, Scooby actually played around with some soap in a very old episode back in 1969. He was making pirate stew. Mm-hmm. And then he used the bubbles out of his mouth as a smoke screen to get away from the ghost. So I think that's the only thing that Scooby knows about for super concentrates and soap.
What do you know about them?
Well, I had an analogy, fuzzy math if you want to call it.
Yep.
So if you take a bottle of wine, and how many molecules are in a bottle of wine?
I don't know. You got to tell me that one.
All right. Well, a standard bottle of wine is 750 milliliters.
Yeah.
And we're going to leave out all the impurities like the alcohol and the grapes and everything out. We'll just deal with the water. So a mole of water is 18 grams or 18 mils. And everybody's like, well, what's a mole? Well, it's a constant. It's 6 times 10 to the 23rd atoms, ions, molecules. So if you have a mole of water, you have 18 grams, then you have 6 times 10 to the 23rd molecules in that.
Okay.
So if you have 750 milliliters and you divide by 18, you get about 41. So you've got like 2.5 to the 10 to the 25th. How many gallons of water are in the ocean?
You got to help me again.
All right, so there's about 352 quintillion gallons in all the oceans, which is 71% of the Earth.
Yeah.
And that's a magnitude of 10 to the 20th. So if you take that bottle of wine and you pour it into the ocean, properly mixed, there's an order of magnitude of about 70,000, which means you are guaranteed every gallon of ocean water will have 1 molecule of that bottle of wine.
Wow. It gives a whole new meaning to like message in a bottle, right?
So the question is that a super concentrate? I just took a bottle of wine and I distributed it through the entire ocean, all of the oceans. Good question. Don't know. But there are products that can be quote-unquote super concentrates, and then there are other products that are marketed as super concentrates. Mm-hmm. So can you have a product that's 100% active and be a super concentrate?
That'd be yes, right?
Well, maybe. So I brought some toys. So this is sodium metasilicate anhydrous, 100 grams. This is sodium metasilicate pentahydrate, 100 grams. The molecular weight on this is 122 grams per mole. We already know what a mole is.
Yes.
The molecular weight on this is 212 grams per mole. But they're both 100 grams. Well, pentahydrate means 5 waters. This has no water. This is 42% water. How do you tell the difference?
I mean, they look like they have very similar size. They're both white powders. I don't know.
Exactly. So if you were buying a car wash soap and sodium metasilicate is listed on the SDS and it's pentahydrate, then you're buying half a box of water.
Wow. So what can a car wash owner do? I mean, because obviously if you want to buy a super concentrate, you probably don't want to buy half a box of water.
Correct.
How can they know? Like, what can they do to be sure?
Well, for liquids, it's much easier. For liquids, you can do titrations if you have an acid or a base. And if it's neutral, I have another toy.
Yeah.
It's called a refractometer.
Okay.
So basically what you do with this is you put a drop of liquid in here, put this on, and look through it, and there'll be a gauge. And this one is 30 to 60. So if it's between 30 and 60 concentrate, it will show up on that line. I have another one that's 0 to 30. So it can tell you the concentration of the non-water parts.
Okay.
So if you had this in liquid form, it would tell you the concentration. So if you took 5 grams of this and put it in water, and you took 5 grams of this and put it in water, this would show up as a 5 for concentration. This would show up as about a 3.
Gotcha. So it'd be, it's pretty clear which one's giving you more bang for your buck.
Right.
But before we move on, how much does that little tool cost? I mean, is that something that's cost prohibitive, or is that something every car wash owner should have in their desk?
It's under $100.
So then it's definitely something everybody should have.
Oh, absolutely. And you could quality control material coming in. You know, if you think that, you know, something changed, this isn't going to lie. It'll tell you point blank.
Wow. You know, it's kind of like a security camera. If you left that on your desk, the guy that's selling you anything would probably be less likely to try to pull a fast one on you.
Exactly. So if you have a certificate of analysis that comes in and says it's going to be this, you pull this out and you test it.
And it's pretty simple too. It's not like it takes hours. I mean, you basically mix a little bit of powder with a little bit of water, look through, and you know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or you can just take the liquid straight out of the drum, and it'll tell you that.
Oh.
Or if you dilute it out in the car wash, and now granted, if it gets down below 1%, you're not going to be able to tell. But let's assume that they say you're supposed to put this on at 5% activity. You could test it out in the tunnel as another test, along with volumetrics and titrations and all the other stuff you can do.
Interesting. So that's definitely something that every super car wash owner needs on their tool belt.
They should. The other thing that I decided to do was just show people differences in density. So this is sodium silicate. It's chemically equivalent to this, but this is how you buy it in liquid form. It's 40% active. This is 200 grams. This is water. This is also 200 grams. This is methanol. This is also 200 grams. So you can see how the densities are all different.
Yeah.
So if you think about it, well, why does that matter so much? When you formulate, you're generally formulating by weight. But when you're selling products, you're selling by gallon.
Gotcha.
So if you take something like sodium hydroxide, which is used in a lot of alkaline cleaners, it's got a molecular weight of about 40. And you take potassium hydroxide, which is used in a lot of car wash formulas also, and it's a molecular weight of 56. Here's my little cheat sheet.
Oh, wonderful.
Card-carrying member of the American Chemical Society. They put a periodic chart on the back.
That's nice.
So in any event, if you put in 5 pounds of sodium hydroxide versus 5 pounds of potassium hydroxide, both being powders, because the sodium hydroxide has less molecular weight, it will titrate stronger than the same weight mass as the potassium hydroxide. So the smaller the atom or the smaller the molecule on a weight basis actually makes it more concentrated on an activity basis.
So how does that equate? Like what does a car wash owner need to look for when they're buying by the gallon and not by the weight?
Well, you need to look at things like density, specific gravity. Let's say, for the purpose of argument, you're using sodium hydroxide in a prep gun. And the specific gravity says it's 1.1 on the material safety data sheet, or SDS. There is a chart, if you go old school. This is the CRC Handbook of Chemistry and Physics from 1985. If you go and look up the chart for sodium hydroxide and look at a specific gravity of 1.1, it's going to tell you that it's got a weight percent of 9.5%. That's one way. You can titrate it using a titration kit that a soap supplier will probably give you. You can look through it on a refractometer, or you can just do a standard dilution. If they say it can dilute 100 to 1 and you'll see results, and you dilute it to 100 to 1 and you're not seeing results, then it's not a super concentrate. But super concentrates are more like a marketing event than an actual definition.
Gotcha. It's not clearly defined what a super concentrate is. There's just some super concentrates that are definitely put together better than others.
Correct. And the only way you're going to be able to determine that is how far can you dilute it down and how effective is it? The other misconception about super concentrates is they assume that they have to go in smaller containers because they're more concentrated. The problem is the cost of packaging goes up with every smaller container. So a 55-gallon drum costs, let's make up numbers, say $1 a gallon. Okay, a 30-gallon drum probably costs, just for the packaging, $2 a gallon. Whereas a 5-gallon container, that package probably costs $3 or $4 a gallon. And then when you get into specialty packaging, they're not even recyclable, so you're throwing them away and you're paying a per unit cost higher for the plastic and the box than you are for the material.
Oh, wow. That's interesting. You know, it kind of makes me think of like athletic fit shirts. All athletic fit shirts are not made the same because there are some of them that would call me an athletic fit, but there's a lot of them that I can't button. So
Right.
It's kind of like a super concentrate. You know, it's the same description, but not always the same result.
Exactly.
Let's shift gears. Let's move away from the super concentrate and into something that smells a little bit better and looks a little bit better. Let's talk about dyes and fragrances. You know, everybody thinks consumers love them. They probably do. But what are they actually, I mean, what do they add any value to a soap?
Dyes and fragrances, above anything else, increase the cost of the product without actually doing anything.
Mm-hmm.
Dyes make the customer feel better because now they're looking at something and they can see it tangibly. You know, you went from a white foam to a blue foam to a red foam, so they can tell that there's a different product going on. With a fragrance, you know, that's another instance where the customer can determine, oh, this is a different product going on, and this is a different product going on. So they know that they're getting more than one product. So it does have its usefulness there, but they're not actually helping to clean. A lot of chemical companies will dye their products with what we call a tracer dye. It's just enough dye in the product so that you can see it through the hose. So you can see that it's actually going out to the car. It's not actually going to go out and be visible by the customer. And it's also helpful, there are certain raw materials that are UV reactive and will get darker over time. And if you put a little bit of dye in there, that will hide that from occurring. Because if you have a brand new drum and it looks gold, and you have an older drum and it looks golden brown, and then the customer's like, well, these are two different products. No, one's just older. And so you put a little bit of dye in there to just kind of
to hide it.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Let's talk about foaming waxes. Foaming waxes, do they work better? Are they a gimmick? You know, tell me how you feel about foaming waxes.
Oh, I hate foaming waxes. Waxes are designed to plate out over a vehicle, like fish scales, okay? Or just a thin surface like ice. When you foam a wax, you are taking something that's not designed to foam, because waxes are by definition defoaming agents anyway. And then you're forcing it onto the vehicle in spotty areas. So imagine if you took a plate of finger paint and you dipped a sponge into it.
Yeah.
And then you put that sponge on the paper. All of those white areas are where the wax didn't hit the vehicle. So it's great that you can have foam in the car wash, and it's great that you have wax or clear coats or ceramics at the end.
Yeah.
But don't put the two together. They're working against each other.
Gotcha. My next question, I don't know if you're going to feel any better about it. From that answer, I'm hesitant to even ask, but tell me about foam curtains. How do you feel about those? Do they work better? Do they not work better?
Well, the one thing that they will tell you is foam doesn't clean. Look at all the instances where you're cleaning something where there is no foam. Floor cleaners, no foam. Dishwashers, there better not be any foam. Otherwise, you're going to have a kitchen full of soap.
I've done that before. I actually went to college. I used regular dish soap in the dishwasher.
Everybody's done it once.
Oh, my gosh. What a mess.
You look at clothes washers. If that had a whole bunch of foam, you'd never get the clothes to rinse. The foam would be trapped in the fabric, and you'd have to rinse and use more and more and more water, which is the other problem with the foam curtain. If you put 3 inches of foam on the car, who can see the 3 inches of foam? The customer can't. They're on the inside.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're going full serve and they're still walking through the tunnel, but those are few and far between.
Yeah.
And it takes a whole bunch of water to remove that. Now, in the self-serve industry, foam is great. You put 3 inches of foam on the car, the customer's going to be there for 15 minutes hosing it off, and you're going to keep feeding the quarters. But in a standard tunnel or in-bay automatic, you don't want all that foam. You want more of a flash foamer, just enough so the customer can see it, and then it dissipates very quickly.
What about stacking waxes? If you put it on flat and then you put on another one, tell me about stacking waxes.
Well, the problem that I have with stacking waxes is if the wax is really, really good, the first one you put on, the next one's going to be repelled by it. Or the wax is very, very bad, and the next one's just covering it up, and the next one's covering it up, and the next one's covering it up, and the next one. So which one is it? They either work and the rest are worthless because they're not sticking to the car, or they're worthless to begin with and they're not doing anything. So which is it? I would rather have one very, very good clear coat, drying agent, whatever, and then nothing else after that. And you can turn them off. I mean, you can stack different drying agents. Just don't put them on at the same time. There's no need for it. The only way you could potentially stack a wax is they have to be virtually chemically identical with the surfactant package so that they can interact with each other before they set up at the same time. But stacking waxes is basically money-losing venture for the car wash operator.
So it sounds to me like it's like painting a wall. Like if you've got a really weak paint on there and you put up a nice paint, the nice paint comes off because it pulls off the not nice paint. Whereas if you had a great wax, which is a great paint, it's like 2 coats of a good paint.
Right.
Am I getting that right?
Sort of.
Sort of?
Sort of. If the wax is phenomenal, it's going to repel everything else off. But on the flip side, if that second wax is coming on, it might sheet off the car a lot faster, which helps the drying system. But for you to have 5 or 6 or 7, there's no point.
You're just wasting money.
Right. You need 1, maybe 2. That's it.
Okay. I want to try something new with you. We're going to do a speed round here. I'm going to give you a topic, and you got a minute or less to tell me how you feel about it.
Okay.
And if it's important or useful, or to a car wash owner, if this is important, useful, and how you feel about it.
All right.
So let's start with the prep gun. You already mentioned it once. Tell me how I feel about a prep gun.
Oh, prep gun is very important. That's the only way you can really get the bugs off. It's got to be high alkaline. There's a lot of times where the car's coming in hot, it's got film. This is the opportunity to cool the car down and start the wash process and let the surfactant start to set up before you enter the tunnel.
Okay. High pH.
There again, high pH gets rid of insect carcasses and it gets rid of certain types of film and oil, whereas neutrals aren't going to be able to do that.
Gotcha. What about low pH?
Low pH is another one where there's certain types of dirt that the high pH can't take off. And you need the low pH to brighten the metals and release certain types of dirt hides just can't do. You can't have a tunnel that's either all high or all low. You need to have a mixture of the two.
What about cationic wax process?
Well, if it's going to be a wax process, it better be a cationic because otherwise it's not going to work.
That was an easy one.
Yes.
This one might actually be a little bit more of a softball. What about wheel cleaning?
Well, the 2 most important things in the wash process, according to many people that I've talked to, are windshields and wheels. If you can get the wheels clean and the windshield is spotless, then you have accomplished your goal.
All right. What about spot-free rinse?
You definitely need that to set up the drying agents so that you don't. There's so many variables in water. I've seen more than I wish to mention, whether it's out west, out east, Midwest. Unless you have a spot-free process, you're going to end up with spotting on the vehicle, and the customer doesn't want to see that.
What about a good blower system?
Some people believe more fans is better. The best scenario is the right number of fans and they're aligned perfectly. Will do a better job than a whole bunch of fans that are not aligned perfectly. if they're working against each other, that's actually a detriment to you. So if you have two blowers going simultaneously and the water can't move left or right or up or down, it's just going to sit there. So that doesn't help you.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, some people like heated systems. Some people do not like heated systems. Heated systems cost money, natural gas, but heated systems will dry the cars a lot better. That's just simple physics. So I'm a fan of heated blower systems, but not to break the bank.
Gotcha. What about Scooby-Doo ties?
I now have two, and I think it's becoming a trend, and I'll probably get one for every Christmas.
That's good. Well, I think you need a new one every time you come here, too. So you might need two per year.
Okay.
Yeah. What about Scooby-Doo ties for car wash owners? Important?
You don't want to wear a tie unless it's a clip-on in a car wash because it can get caught up in the equipment.
Good answer. Good answer. Stuart, is there anything else you'd like to share with our audience today before we go?
Oh, I brought you a book.
Oh, fantastic.
This is called Phosphate Rocks. It's a chemistry murder mystery.
Awesome.
And I figure you could borrow it, tell me what you think, and we can discuss it out in Nashville.
You got it. I'll give this a read, and we can talk about it in Nashville over a hot chicken sandwich.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming in today, Stuart. It's been another fun interview.
Appreciate it.
And thank you for taking the time to join us for this professional car washing and detailing's Wash Talk. I'm your host, Brian Ankney. Today, my guest has been Stuart Hammerschmidt from Shore Corporation. We hope to see you again on a future episode.